the virtual augmentation appears right in front of your eyes. But the interesting thing is that it's not only smart glasses. We use at the moment all sorts of different types of devices. This virtual reality headset works with an ordinary phone. So they are very easily accessible, and this is only about £100. So it's not really a barrier. And you can use things like tablets, and you can see that just watching the same component, you get the additional information. So it's not only about smart glasses, but imagine being an engineer, being able to just take your phone, strip the machine down to bits, identify components that you have to check, replace, and so on. This is already giving us a tremendous amount of additional information that just makes the job much easier to do. On top of that, imagine that we can also instruct people to perform tasks remotely, and with use of this technology we have the ability to explain the working models, explain how things work in a much easier, simpler way. This is one of the few slides when I don't have pictures. The problem is that it's like any other tool. They have disadvantages as well as advantages, and I think it's entirely up to us how we approach it. And I would say that we have to embrace the technology to that level that this is really where the market of multimedia is expanding. So we'll have virtual and augmented reality tools very soon in a much better with use of much better technology, they will be available. But from the advantages point of view, when you think about how much more information you can add to a simple task or more complicated task, this completely changes the way or the ease of use being, for example, a service engineer. I remember stories when I was sent overseas to repair a machine, for example, in Germany, and it just happened to be a case of flicking a switch on site, just because there was no possibility of communicating with them efficiently. And this is precisely where we can save money, where we can save effort using those technologies to do that. The disadvantages, for the time being, especially the smart glasses, are quite costly. And I know that it looks cool when people show, oh, you have this on screen. They still don't work as nicely as the promo video shows. There are still small teething issues. Also, the sheer cost of developing content for this is tremendous. It's no longer writing a document in Word. You really need a team of graphic designers and so on to create the 3D models, split them down into bits and so on. So it actually gets quite complex. And the idea is that we also have to think, what is our end goal? Because with those smart glasses, especially if you'll be able to recognize everything, you'll be able to follow, for example, instructions of use, tick box by tick box, and the machine is going to show you a red light if you are not following it or you are too slow. We are turning people into robots. And I think that the distinction between that approach and what we can actually do with automation and robotics, this is something that we really have to keep in mind, that this is not a solution that is going to solve every single problem. It can be hugely helpful in particular cases, but it's not for everyone, and it's not for absolutely every single piece of technology. We have done a little bit of a pilot study at Medica last year, where I've taken the virtual reality glasses, and we had a showroom of projects and products, and we've shown it to people, and that was a great success because it was a very, very simple tool. You could clearly demonstrate very simple things to people in a couple of seconds. That worked really well. The problem was that people started saying straight away, oh yeah, you can give the virtual reality tools to engineers and so on. And I thought, that doesn't actually work as well. And I found out that actually using augmented reality on an ordinary mobile phone is a much more useful tool for an engineer, because you see everything at the same time, and you don't also have the cost barrier to entry, programming everything for particular model of augmented reality smart glasses. Because at the moment, the smart glasses, these probably start from about $1,000, and the more sophisticated ones are around $3,000. So just having an ordinary mobile phone, maybe the slightly top higher end one, already allows you to experience augmented reality. So we have the two models. This is the real picture of the machine. The one on the right is an augmented one, which you can just strip down to bits. So you can actually have it side by side with your unit, and you don't need to invest that much. The problem is, whoever is going to prepare that model has got to prepare the augmented reality app for you as well. So this, I'm hoping, was a brief introduction to what augmented and virtual reality technologies can provide. What I wanted you to think about is whether there is place to improve the processes that you deal with on a daily basis. Because I think that the critical element is that you know best where you can improve things, knowing what technology you've got available, rather than someone else coming to tell you what you should improve. And I think that, if you get in touch with us, we'll definitely help out mapping that. We work on a daily basis, because I dived into this with the help of several different people, looking from different perspectives of graphic designs, preparing apps and so on. So we have quite a diverse expertise at the moment in that. So just talk to us and let's create some nice projects. Thank you.
To Pavel and
Thank you. That's fine. It's different in every piece of literature, but as long as you know who Pavel is, that's fine. I'll be me. It's actually a very interesting thing that, and thank you very much for inviting me here to speak about augmented reality and virtual reality. But the interesting thing is that I'm talking about those technologies from the perspective of a company who actually embrace those technologies on the back of the work that we already do. It's not the case that we specialize in augmented reality and we just try to find different avenues to push it through. It is more of the technology enabling us to actually bring more tools in a slightly different way, think outside of the box and think what else we can do, how we can improve our systems. So we are now based in Inverness, which is also a nice accent to be here in Scotland talking at this conference. So we've been talking briefly yesterday, Mikko mentioned about the smart glasses use, and I'm going to take that whole subject a little bit further and give you a flavor of what those technologies are. But what my aim for this presentation is really to inspire you to think about how you would use those technologies, what we can do together, how we can actually approach the problems. Because my background are the contamination technologies, and this is something that I hold quite dearly to myself. But using those technologies, we can actually enable what we do. I actually brought the two devices over here so you can actually come in later and see how they differ. But I wanted to first of all talk about the main difference between augmented and virtual reality. So the virtual reality glasses are those who you do not see through. Everything that you see is actually generated virtually, like on a little TV inside of those glasses. You don't see through them. The augmented reality glasses, this is the same thing. You have a tiny little screen, or the picture is actually created on the lens, depending on the technology. But you actually see through them. So when you augment different information, they are augmented on what you see, on everything around it. There is quite a lot of nomenclature, and the purists of the arts distinguish between different levels of engagement, and there is computer-generated virtual reality and mixed reality, immersive technologies. It pretty much all talks about the same thing. So these are the two main differences, that in those virtual reality glasses, everything that we see is virtual, right? So it's generated by a computer. And that distinction really is the basis to look at those technologies differently. Because yet again, for us, it was the case of once you get sort of exposed to those tools, you start thinking, well, maybe it would be nice to use them here or there, but because they are fundamentally different tools, you have to first think about what actually makes sense over here. So on the right-hand side here, you see a little 100% virtual world where we've created a room within which you have different pieces of equipment. So someone actually putting the glasses on can experience a new piece of equipment, can maybe see how they look like, what sort of accessories go together, so they are not completely alien to something new coming to the department, for example. And this is based on the concept of being immersed in a virtual world, so you can sort of move around, look around, you have 360 degrees of vision around it. With the augmented reality, imagine that you are actually adding extra information to what you already see. So this is something where you can actually, like we've seen in the case of yesterday's presentation, add a layer of information. When you are looking, for example, at an instrument set, you can actually get extra information saying what actually is there, what should be there, whether something's missing, and so on. Let's look at that from the perspective of what actually happens and how we can actually utilize those technologies. So the virtual world is brilliant because what we can do is we can take concepts that we are not normally able to experience with our sensory capabilities as we get them at the moment. So for example, look at the nanoscale and actually visualize that. Virtual reality is brilliant for it. It would be pointless to actually show that on someone's desk because it wouldn't make sense. Over here you can actually experience it, you can actually walk around it. This is a little bit, when I explain virtual reality, when you technically should be immersed in that, it's like sort of trying to teach someone to swim without actually going into water. So this is more or less the comparison, but if you talk to me later, I'll show you how the immersive experience looks like. The idea is that this is a world that is generated. Someone had to draw that. Someone had to create every single particle over there. So there is a tremendous amount of effort actually going into creating those worlds. But this is the brilliance of it. The virtual reality is going to allow us to create elements that are difficult to visualize. And when we talk about science, this is very often the case. This is a completely different example. This is augmented reality with layers of extra information being shown in addition to what you see. So imagine being an engineer, getting on site to a new piece of equipment, and you've got, first of all, the system recognizes particular elements. It can show you what to touch, what to check, and so on. Yet again, all of it has got to be programmed. So it's not that on its own it miraculously starts seeing things, valves telling you what to do. All of it has got to be prepared beforehand. The huge advantage of this thing, especially when you are using it through glasses, is that you have your both hands free. So you can actually freely work and you get this information additionally. This example was created, and I think that we are going to see the man standing and operating it. This is the Microsoft HoloLens. It's about $3,500 at the moment, the piece of equipment. It is quite bulky. If you wear it for more than 10-15 minutes, you feel it. So I think that we are talking about very early days of augmented reality. The advantage of this is